Hi, I do have another video which was a Facebook Live I did for Makers Superstore recently, where I created this face mask from the inbuilt shapes on a ScanNCut. This mask has 3 layers and I've added a nose bridge strip. So I will add links to the description box below so you can see my video on how I created this mask pattern directly from the inbuilt shapes on the machine. However, I've been asked about making templates for face masks from existing patterns already out there so that the fabric can be cut by hand. Now, I've chosen a pattern that I found fits quite snugly to the face, which is the Olsen face mask pattern. Now, this pattern does include a filter pocket, and again, you've got the option to add a nose bridge piece. So this is the pattern, and I will add a link in the description box below so you can see how it goes together. It comes with sewing instructions, and there's plenty of videos out there telling you how to sew this particular mask. So again, I will add some links in the description box below, but today I'm just going to be showing you how I made the templates to cut the fabric. I would also highly recommend the addition of non-woven interfacing to any mask you make, and that you use the best quality cotton that you can. So I'm using the SDX 2200D, so I don't have to worry about blade depth or pressure settings. I will add some details in the description box for settings for CM series users, but this machine is my machine of choice. You can cut your templates either out of doeflex or template plastic. I highly recommend that you Google around for the best prices, or alternatively you can cut them out of grey board. Now, I buy all my grey board, which is also known as construction board, from Funky Pen, as they have brilliant prices and excellent customer service. So let's get making templates for the Olsen face mask. I'm going to be creating templates, plastic templates for the Olsen face mask, and labelling them with vinyl. So I've got my mat loaded into the machine, and I'm going to go to pattern, and I'll just find my templates and show you first of all. This is a template I'm going to be creating, and I'm going to be labelling them with self-adhesive vinyl so I know which one's which. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is create my vinyl labels. So I have some self-adhesive vinyl scraps on the mat, and I'm going to go into fonts and choose a font. And my first template is for face 1. I'm going to say OK. I'm going to add another pattern, and my second pattern piece is for cheek 1. So I'm just going to type in cheek 1 and say OK and set. I'm going to add another piece of text for mouth 1 because I have a mouth piece. Okay, so mouth 1 and say OK and set. Okay, so I'm just going to drag them apart because I'm going to resize them. And I'm going to scan in the vinyl on my mat. Now my mat is not terribly sticky, so I think I'll probably end up taping down my pieces of vinyl to the mat. I'm just going to place a little bit of washi tape just on the sides of my vinyl just to hold it in place a little bit better. That piece isn't big enough. Now, top tip, when you're doing half cut, if your mat's not sticky enough, your machine, if you're using an SDX series, will tend to cut right through because it thinks the vinyl is thicker than it is because it's not stuck down to the mat properly. So always make sure your mat is as tacky as possible for the job. So I'm going to just again scan in my vinyl. Okay, so I'm going to resize my text. I'm going to go to Object Edit, resize and shrink that down so it fits over my first piece of vinyl. And I'll probably make them all around 10mm in size. So I'm just selecting each one . And I'm just dragging them over to place them right on top of the vinyl, and I can zoom in to 400% and double check that the vinyl is right over, the cut file is right over the vinyl. Which it now is. So I'm going to say OK and OK again and OK, select cut, and I need to turn the half cut on because you can see it's off at the moment. So I'm going to scroll down, turn half cut on, and my cut pressure for half cut is on auto, and I'm going to say OK and start. So while that's doing, I'm just going to get my weeding tools out. Okay, so that's done. I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to unload the mat. And let's take the vinyl off the mat. So I'm going to peel away the washi tape first. I didn't use the green piece, so I can save that for a later project. Okay, so I'm going to take the vinyl off the mat. I'm just going to weed away. In fact, I'll get my brother weeding tool. I'm just going to weed away the main part of the vinyl. And I think I've got a fine pin weeding tool as well, which I use to remove the tiny centre pieces. As you can see, there's just a little bit of difference, so different tools, you know, choose the right tool for the job. So that's my face one, and I'm going to cut off the excess vinyl because I can also use that for a later project. And grab my hook. As you can see, the machine's cut that perfectly. So I've removed the excess, the outer excess, and now I'm just removing the inners. And that's done. So I'm going to grab some transfer tape. And my scraper. And I'm just going to burnish down the vinyl onto the transfer tape. And I'm going to cut this piece in half. I'm going to do the same with this face one piece. So I'm just going to burnish down the vinyl onto the transfer tape and put that aside for 1 minute. So I don't lose it, I'm just going to put it on the top of the machine. Okay, now I need to create my pattern templates because I'm going to be cutting these out of plastic. Okay, so I'm going to just get my scanning mat. So I'm going to pop my pattern piece, my printout, under the cover. I'm going to go home, scan to cut data, and I'm in black and white recognition mode, and that's okay because I have a black and white template on the mat. So now I'm just going to say start. The machine is saying, if I just turn the light off, scanner is set to position 2, refer to scanner lever, and I know this isn't a thick material, so I'm reducing my scanner lever down to 1. And I'm going to say start. So if we have a look at the screen, I want to choose just the outline because that's what I want. So I'm going to say outline, and I'm going to drag in the arrows just to select my pattern template. And say preview, and that's fine. So I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to save it to the machine. Okay, so I'm going to go home, delete all patterns, and now I'm putting my next template printout under the scanning mat. And I'm going to do the same thing. So scan to cut data, and say start. So the machine is just recognising and the template pattern, and again I'm going to just select the outline. I'm going to drag my arrows in, so I just select my template pieces. I'm I'm going to say preview, OK, and save to the machine. I'm going to go home and say OK, and I'm just going to retrieve that pattern because it's actually picked up the test square, the 1 inch test square, so you can make sure you've printed it off at the correct size. So I'm just going to delete that off, say OK, and save it to the machine. And I'm going to overwrite it because I don't need to create a new file, and say OK. So that's my pattern pieces for my cheek and mouth one. I'm going to go home. I'm going to go into retrieve data, back into my machine's memory, and I have a couple of little excess dots, or just a couple of little marks on my mouthpiece one, which I'm going to just delete off. I'm going to say OK, and again save to the machine and overwrite, and I've got a couple of nice clean cut files ready to cut my template plastic. So let's take the template out and unload the scanning mat. And the reason I'm using a high tack fabric support sheet is that it's nice and sticky. It will hold my template plastic in place. And of course, as it has no fibres, it's not going to stick too firmly to the mat, and I can easily remove it. I've already got my first template piece up. Bit difficult to see, but basically I know where the template plastic is on my mat, so I'm just going to drag my cut file over the template plastic, and actually I may nudge that in just a few times and say OK and OK again and OK. I'm going to go to select, cut, and I need to turn half cut off, and I'm going to turn my half cut off, scroll back up, turn my cut pressure to auto on my normal blade, say OK and say start. And I'm going to just remove the waste so I can show you the template piece, which will have cut perfectly. There's the waste. I'm going to unload the mat actually, and that'll be easier to remove the template plastic. And as you can see, that's come away nice and cleanly. So now I know I'm going to double check before I apply my vinyl. And this is for face piece one, so face one. So I'm just going to turn the light on so you can maybe hopefully see a little bit better. And I'm going to take my vinyl that I cut earlier. So I'm just making sure again the vinyl was burnished to my transfer tape. Which it has. And I'm just going to apply this to my template, burnish it down, and there you go, that's my first template. So I'm going to repeat the same process for cutting and applying vinyl to the other template pieces, and I hope this helps, and I'll see you in another video.